Hello.
Hi.
And Happy New Year, and welcome to Season 2 of In Conversation. And we're starting off with our new friend, Larry Long Jr.
So Larry is the director of collegiate sales at a company called Teamworks, which essentially their app works in a way that they allow college athletes to get all the pictures and all the videos of them on the field to use instantly after they get off the field to help build their social presence.
This is going to help these students build their brand, possibly gain sponsorships, and actually, for the first time in the history of college sports, actually be able to leverage and monetize their brand and their image.
But not even just outside of that. The colleges are using the athletes to recruit new people to come to the college by showing their authentic selves via social media. So it's a great asset to them as well.
Well, it's a great conversation, and enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show. We're in conversation with Larry Long Jr. Larry, we usually start off with you give us a little information about, who you are and what you do.
Frank and Jack, first of all, thank you for having me on In Conversation. Happy to be here. Larry Long Jr., Director of Collegiate Sales for a company called Teamworks. And we say teamwork makes the dream work. We sell software to elite athletic teams, and I'm on the college side. Really, our goal is to empower and engage elite athletes. And that's through a communication platform as well as a social media platform that allows them to tell their stories. And I'm in sales. Some people call it storytelling. I call it story selling.
Yeah, what's so fascinating about this app, and what's the name of the company? You might have said it, I totally missed it.
Influencer is the influencer. INFLCR is the name of the social media platform.
Yeah, and what's so amazing about this, and we've had a couple of pre-podcast conversations, and the reason why it really excited us and wanted to have you on is because of what this platform actually does for student athletes. And I think there's a huge gap right now with an understanding of, we can kind of go into a whole bunch of different realms. Well, first thing I'm going to talk about is, with copyright and not being able to know what footage or anything you can use. So just for a little background on Influencer, what it's going to do is after, say, a big basketball game, you can go back as a player and instantly have all the pictures that you're tagged with, right, that they took during the game, so that you can start to use that in your profile and your platform instantaneously, rather than being like, wait, can I use this picture? Where are all these pictures? All of a sudden 3 weeks goes by of your best game and nobody remembers, what that game even was against Duke. It's instantaneous, which I think is really, really important.
You're absolutely correct. And it's really that editorial. If you take a look, and you can look at the king, down with the king, LeBron. You look at his IG, or as the millennials call it, the gram, his Instagram, a lot of it is just it's his personal, whether it's Taco Tuesday. It's really that editorial. He's telling his story of his life, and he's using pictures and videos versus the branding. So if you look at Ronaldinho, who's right around 50 million followers, a lot of what he posts is the branding. He's getting paid advertising. So when you look at it, consumers are pretty smart. They're like, "Ooh, he's getting paid for this. He doesn't even drink Sprite. I'm not going to follow this guy." Whereas LeBron, he keeps it real. And you know that what he puts out is authentic content. Therefore, that engagement. I mean, you think about it, people want to be engaged with authentic folks, not with just a brand, just he's shoveling something. He's trying to sell me something.
Yeah, and we could talk about that for days, because we recently partnered up with Tom Kennan, who is a strategist out in New York, and we had a whole segment on our conversation with him, episode 19, if everybody's interested, all talking about how influencer marketing really is just, it's not new. Everybody thinks that this is new, like, oh, it's a new thing, right? But like he brought up, he's like in the 60s with Mrs. Butter. I remember Mrs. Butterworth.
It was some kind of soap. It was some kind of soap or
right.
detergent.
It has a celebrity selling it. It's the same thing. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, right? And so in reality, what happens with, there are people that right now that are making a lot of money selling influencer marketing as like the new hot thing. In reality, it hasn't really changed. What you're looking for is authentic interactions, right? And so to your point, I mean, you're really hard up on LeBron and the stuff that he's doing, because it doesn't come across as like, oh yeah, well, Sprite paid me to,
Yeah.
do this ad, and I don't really drink Sprite, but hey, man, when you put a check that size in front of me, like, what am I supposed to do?
And that's kind of like, this the consumer like trends, like people like on social media, because there is that part of it that's like, oh, this is fake. Like this, people call social media, your Instagram, your Facebook is like a highlight reel of your life, because no one tells you the bad stuff that's going on. Like we didn't see the aftermath of Taco Tuesday for LeBron, did we now? So no one knows. So like, so the idea of selling something that is authentic and actually trying to be authentic when you're out there or on those platforms is actually something that people have, like, over the past like 10 years that it's been super prevalent. It's kind of gotten, this is stale. Like sometimes you don't follow those Instagram accounts that only have perfect pictures on them, because it just seems, well, I know this is fake. It was cool in 2015 to have the perfect polished, images, but now it's like, you know what, I need some real authentic images. But on top of that, it is nice to have high quality pictures of your game so that you don't have to track down someone because this is even something.
Well, no, here's the point. If you're on the basketball court dropping threes like nothing,
yeah,
you can't have your phone shooting yourself.
Yeah.
Dropping, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So it's very authentic. It's
Right.
like, hey, look at this picture of me over here, right? This is something that happened to me. I'm very proud because, this was the game winner, or this was the what started off on this great run.
But like as we know, what the quality pictures do, it allows you to open up, and then you can do that Facebook or Instagram live thing, and people might actually be interested in what you're talking about.
Sure.
Without those high quality pictures, no one cares. No one's going to look at you. It's like, oh, well, who the hell is this guy? It's like, oh, he's got a look at this video of him dropping threes, like with people, like 10 people in his face. That's cool. I'm going to listen to what this guy has to say about whatever he's talking about,
Right.
So true. And Jack, you made a great point there, because once again, when you look at a sports team, what we see is let's say Northwestern basketball. They've got some followers that follow the team page. But if I'm a recruit, yeah, I care about the team, but I want to know the experience of the athlete. I want to know, if I go to your program, what is that experience? And the best way for me to find that is through the athlete's story, through their pictures, both on the court, but also off the court. What's going on in the dorm rooms? What's going on after practice? How are you feeling? And you're absolutely right. The content, the pictures paint a great picture. So I get done a great game. I can use, essentially our program uses facial recognition, number recognition. It can show me with the national anthem, show me dunking, and I can really get my shine on, but also put the spotlight and get the shine on to my teammates. We work with Duke University, and we heard from one of their internal folks that they were somewhat surprised that the players were supporting each other by giving them shout outs. So instead of boosting themselves up, it's like, hey, take a look at my teammate over here. He's getting his jam on. And essentially it helped to solidify that team camaraderie, which is what every program, every organization wants, is that togetherness.
Yeah. There was a few things that you mentioned there. I mean, we often say too, I mean, especially on the branding side and the storytelling side of things, which, as you know, I mean, we're very much against, not against, but adding to standard advertising to kind of fill up the story of a brand. But what really does fill up a story of a brand? It's the people that are a part of it, right? Or the stories that you not fabricate, but that you use in your storytelling method. So like if you were to do a video about a series, if that's what the audience was looking for, then using that. And who are the people that are actually in it? And, like when we post up stuff on LinkedIn or mostly on LinkedIn, right? If it's like an article or something like that, right? If Jack writes an article, I'm not like, oh, let's post it from the Clovis Point, right? No, we post it from Jack because Jack's the one that said it, right? Jack's the one that wrote it. So when I come up with something too, I'm the one that wrote it. Now we share it to the Clovis Point page, right? Because that's a collective of all of this work that we're going on. But to your point too, the athletes, the ones that anybody cares or gives a hoot about what their experience is going to be the people that are actually going there. And this helps colleges recruit good athletes to come there.
Yeah. And then going on to the whole thing that you said that it was Northwestern, right? That was surprised that it helped. Everybody was helping each other. But that's just what happens when the content is abundant. Then it's like, oh, I can do this because I know I'm getting picks. I know I'm getting content. I know I'm going to get this. So it's not because like what you said, you might, before your program and before people were actually taking this seriously, some of these student athletes might not have gotten those picks until 5 weeks later. And at that point, it's like, I have to hold on to this and I have to promote the hell out of this because I don't know when the next time I'm going to have a good game and the next time I'm going to get these picks. But now if it's like every week I'm going to get some picks, of course I'm going to.
Right after the game,
of course I'm going to shout out, look, oh, you remember, I remember, look at me in the background there, you know, look at, that was me helping, you know, but you know, that's the stuff that, you know, that's why that's going to work that way because now there's an abundance of content. Whereas if there's, and you know, working on, it's even hard when you know the person who has the picks from the film shoot and he doesn't let you post them right away.
Oh, or well, we don't have to tell that story.
Holds them. You know, we did a whole photo shoot, never posted it because we couldn't post.
No, tell that story.
So like, well back in the beginning of time, well, long ago, when dinosaurs were walking around. No, but like at one point in time, we were working on a website, and so then what I decided to do is, all right, we're going to go take some new headshots and pictures and everything, right? But there specifically was to be posted once the website went up, right? And so we did the pictures, and then the website didn't go up for another like 3 years.
Well, it's still not up.
That website ended up dying. But so what ended up happening is that we have our father's a photographer, so we have great pictures.
Yeah, great pictures that we never were able to use, and now because they're so far away, they don't even look like me.
Jack didn't have a beard.
Yeah, they don't even look like me, so I can't even use them. Like maybe as like a throwback Thursday, but you know, and that's the thing about pictures is that they have a shelf life, especially when you're constantly trying to grow and like you wouldn't want to use that if you're on the varsity team. You don't want to use the pics and the videos from that freshman year. It might not be your best, like that might have been your best game at that point, but definitely not what you want recruiters looking at now. So it's a time thing. You know, there is a shelf life to videos and to pictures, especially when there's so many of them.
That real timeness, especially in sports, your moment is right now. You win the championship. Guess what? 3 days later, no one cares. It's like, who? So it's like when that moment, you hit that buzzer beater, you want to capitalize on that moment right then and right there. And if you don't have access to those images and that content, it's going to pass you right by. We've seen it happen, unfortunately, but a lot of athletic departments are getting hip to the game and realizing, hey, we've got something special going on this season. We've got a chance to run up to the national championship football game, and we want to make sure we empower and engage all of our student athletes to tell their story, which amplifies our entire university. It amplifies our entire athletic department at the time while it's hot.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. And amplifies the university as well. And I understand the university's trepidation of allowing student athletes then to become the voice of your college or university. Right. I can understand that.
Because the messaging might not be exactly what you want, but it's going to be authentic.
It's going to be authentic. Right. So, and it will also prove too, if you're at a university that sucks, that they finally understand. It's like, oh, well, nobody's really having fun here. Maybe we should change something. Because that's the biggest thing about advertising, right? Is that 98% of advertising out there, if you sit there and you watch it, you're like, they're trying to sell me something. Yep. So I know that this is polished, right? You get a pamphlet from Dartmouth or whatever. You get a pamphlet from Northeastern Illinois University where we went. You'd think you walk down there, you're walking on gold bricks, and everything's so clean, everything's so perfect. But you know that's not the case, and there's nobody out there that's really going like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to recommend Northeastern University for their athletics. Northeastern Illinois University, and clarify, because so they don't have athletics.
But
there.
You know that's not really why you go someplace. You know, you don't go you don't go someplace because it's it's the nicest, not the nicest college, but you don't go someplace because it's polished. You go there because there's an energy there. There's a vibe there. an actual sense of belonging that I can be there. So this is actually the better way to promote your university, because it gives not only students but also recruiters a better sense of what's actually going on.
Right.
That experience. And what we're seeing now is brands are starting to perk up because they see an opportunity with student athletes as brand ambassadors. And you mentioned something earlier about being the voice of the institution. One of the things that we harp on is the education. So just informing the student athlete, and we all know kids will be kids. Really, people will be people. They'll do things that'll make you scratch your head and things that make you go, But as long as we can educate them, and I mean, we have an ability to flag certain words that you might not want represented by your student athletes. So it's like waving the right flag, mayday, mayday. We got to get this thing deleted before we end up on the national news for all the wrong reasons. But it's an interesting space, and it's changing each and every day, as I'm sure y'all see as well.
Yeah. And we could talk a little bit more about the branding side of stuff too, because like one thing, and brands will do this in advertising. I just watched Adweek's top 5 commercials, and I didn't agree with any of them, mostly because I don't agree with commercials in the first place. But they're like, oh, look at this storytelling, look at this. One of the things that we can talk about is how the brands are perking their ears up because of why. Why are they perking their ears up? Because these student athletes are getting attention. And what do we always say about advertising? It's the parasite off of attention. Right. So if you're sitting there and you're going like, wow, this guy's got, all these followers. He's getting a lot of attention because of influencer. He's got all these great pictures. We want him to represent Sprite. Sorry, we keep on picking on Sprite. Well, we haven't been picking on him. Not yet. Stay tuned.
Yeah, right.
Right. And Sprite's like, I want him to be our brand ambassador because he's like whatever demographic that we decided we want to try getting into this college, and this might be a good way to do it. It is going to lose all steam, and potentially the student athlete could lose a lot of, not representation, but genuineness, or what word am I looking for?
Authenticity.
Credibility.
Thank you, Larry. Credibility. If he starts to pitch Sprite, all of a sudden people are going to be like, oh, we lost another good one, right? And so there's the issue right there, right? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I would agree that authenticity, that credibility, which is why the real deal posts mean so much. I mean, it's the analogy between LeBron James and Ronaldinho. Ronaldinho, you give him the gold mic, he'll pitch anything. Whereas LeBron, I mean, I would imagine, I don't know LeBron, I wish I did, but I would imagine he's not pitching anything if he doesn't really believe in it. Now, do I believe he drives a Kia? Things that make you go, Now, do I believe he drinks Sprite? Yeah, that's believable, but you're absolutely right. It gives you insight into individuals, what their values are, what's important to them. And I mean, money talks. You, especially to a college kid, think about it. When you were back in college, if a brand, let's say it was a car dealership, said, hey, Frank, hey, Jack, we want you to go ahead and be in our ad because you're the top dog on campus. It might make you go, I'm struggling over here just to put some food on my table. Right. Sign me up.
Yeah. Well, in our case, we would have mystified.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what? But at the same time, too, at that point in time, if it's a luxury brand type thing, it could be overworldly. It could be very genuine. You're like, dude, I'm driving an Audi. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. But once again, I don't know if Audi would ever do that because I don't know if the student athletes have money to buy an Audi, right? So most likely it would be like a McDonald's, something that college kids are already kind of doing and then trying to push them over the edge.
But I think also, I
was going to say, you got to think about those student athletes' audiences because alumni, I mean, we see it. And I know y'all are in the Midwest and you got the Ohio State, you got Michigan State, you got Michigan. Their fan bases are rabid. I mean, it's you see some of these boosters and donors that are shelling out a lot of money for access into the program. They love the athletes. That star quarterback, that star point guard, they they're following their every move. So maybe Audi might say the student athlete, that's not our demographic, but the alumni, the boosters, they are.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
And there's another really good point, or not even for these student athletes now, because there's a lot of competition to get into the professional world, and this is something that's true in the movie world, in the what was that world? The
film?
Cinema world, film world?
Film industry?
Film industry. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. Film industry, a lot of times you get a part depending on how many followers you have. Yeah. So and not to say that that's the exact same thing that's happening in the NBA or in the NFL or in the MLB, but it could be a big indication of like, what is that brand looking for? What is that team looking for? If you have a lot of engagement, there is a possibility that even if you're not the best player on the planet, you could get butts in the seats because people want to see you play. You know, people like your personality. You can fit into an organization well. Those are things that can be extrapolated based on your social media presence. That I don't know if that, the whole thing of, keeping everything quiet and not telling everybody what you're doing is kind of an old world way of thinking, because you want people say, hey, look at this person working out every day at 6 a.m. I saw it on his story on Instagram, like 27 days in a row. All right. Look at this person, always helping out, always shouting out his other teammates with, that could be the thing that puts you from, should we draft this guy, to, yes, we're going to draft this guy.
Or maybe we're going to draft this guy this early.
Right. Are we going to draft this guy in the first round, or are we going to wait until someone snags him? And you know what? He has potential to maybe not be the best player, but he's going to be a really good asset to this team in many other ways.
Real life example, Tim Tebow. Football great at Florida, football. He played in the NFL, but he's now playing baseball with the New York Mets. And he's okay at baseball. He's a phenomenal athlete, but you've got to think that part of that play is to get the attention, get the eyeballs, and get the butts in the seats with his journey to Major League Baseball. He's been in the minor league squad for a few years now, but trying to make his way to the big leagues. But it's a balance. You've got to perform on the field, but you also want to have those eyeballs off the field.
Yeah, right.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and then from the other side, because I know that influencer really isn't that big into, the college players going into the professional, but more or less the high schoolers coming into college, right? That's the eyeballs. That's the direction that influencer's looking, right? That's who they're really trying to attract. And then inadvertently, that means that they have a lot of followers, and all of a sudden they have, Sprite coming and trying to pay them to be. So maybe not even the college athletes are trying to get high schoolers, right? That could be a huge part of it as well. But how important that is to see the college athlete, who's really good, actually being the active recruiter, better than some conference somewhere, where you go in and they're like, oh, it's great, it's great, it's great. It's like, well, actually, I do know it's great because the guy I follow, who's, the star cornerback, he's great. And all this cool stuff that's going on, right? I want to go there. So
true. You hit it right on the head. And it's amazing to see just the transition, the shift of the digital transformation within college athletics. And college athletics at the highest levels, it's a big business. It's a really big business. And there's a lot of opportunity out there. And now that you allow student athletes to participate in some of those games, it's going to be interesting. I don't have a crystal ball, but all I know is that I've got my popcorn, and I'm excited to see what's around the corner in 2021.
Yeah, right. Well, it's literally like I had something and it totally just disappeared. I touched my eye and then it was gone. Okay, right. There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it. I actually got it back. And the universities really are big business. They really are big business. And I think for far too long, and I know this is a controversial topic, and to be honest, I'm on the fence on either one, but these student athletes are bringing in millions of dollars, right? Millions of dollars. And they're getting paid underneath the table, sure, some of them. And then is that in California? Yeah, right. Well, I don't know any names. But what was it in California? You were talking about a law that was going to get passed to allow them
California and Florida have passed state laws that in 2021 athletes can be compensated for their name, their image, and their likeness. Now there's talk at the federal level. There's talk at the NCAA level with their member institutions. There's potential for it to get a little bit messy when you have different guidelines here, there, and everywhere. But essentially what the government said is that because there's so much money and folks are making money, the student athletes deserve, if it's their name, their image, and their likeness, they should be able to participate in the compensation, the remuneration that's being held out there. And I mean, there's a lot of money out there, a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, you know, speaking as a student who worked on campus, I mean, essentially, there are student employees all over the place.
Yeah.
And I mean, the amount of work you have to do to be a student athlete is insurmountable. I mean, you're at least spending 8 to 8 hours a day, at least, if not going over practice, working out. I mean, you can't
reading playbooks, right?
You can't go out there. You can't get another job. You know, you can't do it.
It is your job.
If you want to
keep
your
part-time job,
right?
Yeah.
If you want to keep your spot on the squad, you can't get another job. I mean, it'd be like if I was, because when we went to Northeastern.
Oh, hey, sorry, coach, I can't make it to practice. I got my my shift at Pizza Hut.
Yeah, right. You know, it's
like,
if I was like,
that's not going to fly. All of a sudden, you're off the team.
Like I wouldn't be a lifeguard at Northeastern if I wasn't getting paid for it. It's like, you know what, you're studying at school, and yeah, it's fine.
Right.
Like, you don't need to get paid. It's like, God, yes, I do. And I wasn't even putting 8 hours a day in there or 40 hours a week. A lot of these student athletes are putting a lot of time a week, and what are they getting? I guess a free ride to school, but that's not real money. That's
We just have to start calling college sports what it actually is, and it's like the minor leagues to a lot of these. That's what it is. I mean, it's like you choose. However, they get to choose what team they go to for the most part, right? They're getting recruited and pulled a whole bunch of different ways, but that's literally what it is. Why are we worried about these guys getting 3.5 GPAs when it's like, dude, they need to focus on being the best they can on the field. Let's make sure that they're getting compensated in some way, shape, or form. And let's just write it like that. And then use influencer. It'll be great for the whole economic ecosystem if these guys are making enough money to then go out and maybe even hire some social media people to do their own stuff, right? It's like, oh, here, you go ahead and do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm the athlete. I got to go hit the gym.
Right. It's kind of twofold. It's interesting because, and you touched on it, you've got the high schoolers that are trying to go to that next level of college. And a lot of these high school kids, they've gotten hip to the game on Instagram. They're using graphics. They're polishing up their look, their brand. They're really building solid brands of themselves. Now, when they get to college, there's more resource. And essentially, there's the opportunity to take it to that next level. But let's say I'm a college athlete and I don't have pro athletics in my future. I can still leverage my brand for whatever that next step is. Because if you think about it, a lot of what happens is relationship. It's based off of relationships. It's not necessarily, I think there's a saying, help me out. It's not what you know, it's
who you know.
Who you know. Now, in my Steve Harvey Family Feud voice, survey says, nah, it's not what you know, and it's not even who you know, but it's who knows you. And who trusts you and who believes in you. So being able to build that brand, and now people know you, they feel like they know you, they feel like they trust you. It's like, hey, come on in and join my company. I'd love to have you as an employee, because that picture, that pretty picture that you painted, all rainbows and sunshine, I want some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you just hit it on the head. Yeah. And he already got us with that when we did the pre-podcast. You not remember? He did the whole Family Feud thing. When
he wasn't paying attention. It's all good. It happens to me all the time.
No, well, I mean, there was just so much energy. Some of it just flew off,
No, but here you go. Here you go, though. Here's an amazing little thing, right? What if now this we in high school? I'm sorry, I'm a million miles an hour here. In high school, we never learned how to do taxes, and you never learned how to find a place to live or how to write a resume. Maybe a little bit, but not much. You learn all this useless stuff. They really have to start to whatever.
No. I said no to learning how to write a resume. I still don't know how to write a resume.
I know. Well, they didn't teach you anything. So, anyways, anything practical.
I could do elementary algebra though. Pretty well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Put some X's and O's in front.
Hey,
of
I know how to.
I
know how to find the hypotenuse of a triangle.
But anyways, why not start to teach people about branding themselves right on social media? To your point, and I love it because it doesn't just stop at student athletes going pro. You have student athletes that will then become a tax attorney or will then become, and what you do is you fall in love with the person and you're following the person. It's not about what sport they play or where they went to school. You literally will start following the person. And to your point again, and I love what you said, people feel like they know you. They feel like they could sit down next to you at a bar and start to just talk.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like I would know everything about them, right? If anybody knew who I was, right? Like they would just sit down and just go like, hey, Frank, what's going on? I'm Jeff. You know, Jeff. I watch your stuff every day. Like you're absolutely fantastic. So, hey, I wanted to tell you a little bit about this and a little bit. And you could just have that organic. People feel like you know them, like you really know them. And you fall into this pit too sometimes. Like, I'm just going off of Good Mythical Morning. Do you know Good Mythical Morning? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rhett and Link, there are probably around 16 million people that feel like if they saw them in the grocery store, they could just go up to them and just be like, dude, I know everything about you. Right? High five, and you know everything about me. But that's not the case. But that's the power of it. That's the power. Whatever Rhett and Link do next, they could stop Good Mythical Morning right now, and they can go do something else. And most of those people that are following them right now will follow them to their next adventure, whatever it is.
And I think that's where I was going with the other thing too, about how if you have that, like if you're not the best player, you might get that higher rank in the draft because of your social media, but that's also true in future in life. I mean, it's going to still be valuable. I mean, the fact that you are working out every day at 6 a.m. shows commitment, and it shows the dedication that could be useful in your new tax attorney job.
If you're applying for something, then
right. If you're applying something, that could be very useful.
Yeah.
Differentiator. Frank, you made a comment earlier about posting as an individual when Jack composes, when he creates, and instead of under the company umbrella, it's the personal brand.
Right.
We're seeing this debate all across kind of SaaS sales, software sales, where there's a battle between employees that are building their brand, they're putting out content, they're leveraging video, which is big now on LinkedIn, and then the company saying, hey, we don't want you building a brand. We want everything to come from the company. And there's kind of this clash right there.
Yeah.
Whereas there's some companies that embrace it and say, hey, we want each and every one of y'all to build your brand because it's going to amplify and it's going to lift the boat of all of us, including the organization. So it's interesting to see the tale of two halves.
I think that the argument on that other side about the company saying we want this to come from the company, it's a fear. It's a fear of losing.
Big fear.
It's a fear of losing that salesman, because that salesman is building a brand and
he can go anywhere.
He can go anywhere.
She can go anywhere.
She could go anywhere. They're going to get poached and that's part of the reason why they're doing it. Is to make themselves irreplaceable to that brand, but also it's to say, hey, you know what? Another company selling bigger things wants to hire me for.
Well, it doesn't need to be even that nefarious. It could just be the fact that the relationships they're building, those are what's important to the clients that are paying them to get whatever it was, right? Whatever you're selling. That's the big part. Well, I mean, you're like, and then I'll move on and everything. But a lot of people,
I don't know if that was nefarious. I mean, to want something better for yourself, I don't know if it's nefarious.
Okay, I might be using the wrong word. That's perfectly possible. My vocabulary is very short. I'm from Chicago. Okay, I'm just gonna say, man, guy. Here we go. I'm saying it's a little deep. I'm saying it may be a little sneaky.
Nefarious seems like it's like it's like an evil intent to build your brand.
Not
to
an
move
evil
up.
intent, but you made it sound like them doing this is specifically for them to leave a brand when that's not necessarily the case.
Well, I mean, but it just has that's the fear. The fear is that's what they're doing.
Oh, right. Okay.
fear
So
is
you're
that's
talking
what
from
they're
the side of the brand itself. Right. And from a brand standpoint, you're worried about, people starting to build their brand and all of a sudden you find out that they're members of societies that you don't like, right? That you don't want associated with your brand. So, I mean, that goes back down to HR. They have to figure out how to hire the right people. And if that does end up occurring, then you just let them go. So that's not really a big deal.
Big time. Have y'all seen a huge increase in the use of video assets versus just long form, short form written content?
Yeah. So here's the thing about video, right? It's that video is kind of paraded around by a lot of marketing companies that it's like the golden goose. Like if you have video, all of a sudden,
It doesn't even
everything's
matter
gonna
the
work.
video,
Right. And there's some truth to that, right? And I get these statistics that people use to try to sell video. It just drives me nuts, right? They're like, oh, it has 98% more viewership. Like you're going to get hooked. And I'm like, yeah, well, that really depends on what you're watching, right? You're taking statistics from video in general. Let's just say video in general, right? Let's go back to Good Mythical Morning, right? I'm going to tag them in this and they better come on the podcast, right? If you're watching that, I will watch 20 minutes of an episode, right? It's usually 16 minutes of Good Mythical Morning, nonstop, all the way through, right? It's got my attention, right? Now, if a Progresso commercial comes on, and it's 5 minutes long, if it's a minute long, if I have the opportunity to skip it, I'm taking it. Yeah. If I can't skip it, I'm flipping the phone over or I'm tuning it out. Like I won't even hear it. I'll just be like, right? And now there's a lot of argument when the science section of even though you're not paying attention, you're actually still hearing it and then it gets recorded in your brain. But really, is that the way that you want to build your brand? No, that's not the way that you were like, oh yeah, you got stuck in my head because I kept hearing it over and over again. And now I'm annoyed with you, Progresso. Not that I don't know if Progresso even advertises anymore.
You're going to go to the grocery store and buy some Progresso tonight.
I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you. But yeah, so there's a lot of verbiage out there about how important video is, and it is important. It's important to have, but it's more important to know what type of video you're putting out, right? And so if we could just take back to the student athlete portion of it, right? It's like, okay, the videos of them scoring and the videos of them hanging out at the dorm, it's going to be invaluable to the university and to their own brand because it shows them, right? Now, if they start shooting videos and it's all about, like it's like a Sage setup thing and they're like, Sprite, so good, delicious, right? Then that video is useless, right? Because it's like, maybe you trick somebody to watch it once, but the more often you do it, the less times people are going to pay attention to you, right? So yes, people are using video all the time. I highly encourage people to use video, especially if they're starting out. Just go out there and start talking. We were talking to the end of season one with Brian Bogert was all about like, don't get intimidated by it, but also cautioning brands, schools in this case, that, just paying for some video isn't the answer to it.
Right. For any piece of content to work, it has to be consistent and then it has to be genuine. And if it's not both those things, like it's just not going to work. Especially like we said when we were talking earlier, it's about building that brand, and like you said, it's why does LeBron James get so much more engagement than the other guy? It's because LeBron James is genuine with his content. It's not highly polished all the time. Sometimes there is polished stuff, but it's not always. It's the facets of the human being that are getting portrayed out there.
Yeah. So long way to say yes, but we try. What we're doing right now is we're kind of on an educational crusade. Because we've been on an educational crusade for like 4 years now. 4 years. And hopefully that's what this podcast is helping some of these people to do, because they're saying the same stuff over and over again. Marketers saying the same stuff. Video production companies saying the same stuff. And people are buying into it. And then they end up with a product that's useless. It's like, oh, well, it didn't do anything. Oh, I got 10 million views on it. It's like, yeah, you could pay any amount of money to get any number of people to watch anything. Not a big deal. Right. There are people that will take your money. Go ahead and take it, right? You can get anybody. This clip right here, I could pay, whatever, like $500 and then have it on LinkedIn, probably at the top of people's feeds for, I don't know, maybe a couple days, right? Yeah. But is that really... Well, this is genuine content though, so maybe it would work. But
maybe it would work.
Right, but you can pay anything for that. So we're on a, like I said, crusade. It's like
just
start with understanding what your audience is looking for, and then start to go like, okay, well, how are we going to get it out there? What's the story? What do we try? What's the end game here? Right?
Yeah.
How are we going to continue this going?
Have that creative strategy to be able to actually leverage the products that and the content that you're pushing out there. And also it's very important. You can't be pushing out video. You can't be pushing out your voice unless you've heard what the conversation was about. I mean, like these are things that advertisements just say, like, it's like as if it's supposed to shortcut around it. It's like, you don't need to know what the conversation is. You'll just shout in their face and they'll hear it. Like, would you let an advertisement into your house? Would you want to be a friend with an advertisement? Just shouts and says, I have to get through the whole thing before you speak, and you pops up at random times and you don't want it. Like me and Frank are in a conversation. You just say, hey, what about student athletes? I mean, it's like you wouldn't like it. There's no substitute for being actually listen to the conversation and then getting invited to speak about it. Yeah. Because that's the only way you're going to get genuine content is if you actually know what the hell you're talking about, because you know what's happening. All these conversations that are happening on social media have been happening for since the beginning of time. These are just conversations that keep evolving. And it's one of the things that, one of the few things I learned in college was about, like, if you're going to write a critical essay on something, you have to do the research about what was said, because you don't know you don't even know if your opinion on the piece, first of all, it might already exist. So you might be saying, this is the first time this ever was said. And you're like, no, dipshit. Someone said that 10 years ago. You didn't do your research. You don't know the conversation that you're having.
Right.
And that screams like disingenuous. You're being disingenuous.
Jack, I love what you said. And the key word that I heard was listen. I mean, it's by design that we've all been blessed with 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so many times, I mean, we know that we're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk, but actually doing it is so tough. Even for the brands that have all the research, they don't listen. It's kind of like being tone deaf. It's like the audience is they're telling you their story, and you're just saying, earmuffs. And you're just going down whatever path you want to go, instead of down the path that if you had just listened, this would have been the path to you winning the order, winning the business.
Right. And so, okay. So, and I realize that we really have been talking quite a good chunk of time, but just one little thing, because you said listen, right? But what brands do is they say they do the research, they listen, but they're listening and they're trying to find what they already assume is true. Mm-hmm. Right. How dumb is that? It's like going doing a blind taste test of different soups and being like, well, I like Progresso and this one's Progresso. So obviously, oh my God, so much better than no matter how good the other soups were. Yeah. Right. And so, and that's what our, Tom Kennan does, is actually looking at data sets and being like, let's try to find something interesting here that everybody else is just glossing over because they're like, that already exists. Or like, I already know that the data's going to come back and tell me this, so why am I even going to bother with it? Yeah. Except for to put on errors. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a huge problem too.
So true. So true. What do you guys see as we getting into the new year? What do you see as some of the trends out there in your market?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, and we can tie this back into, with what you're doing, is that there's definitely one startup that is trying to connect influencers to certain demographics. So brands to certain influencers in certain demographics, like neighborhoods and stuff, right? Like I believe I told you about that on our pre-podcast, and they're called Sway Brand. I've tried to get in contact with them, and maybe if he sees this piece,
Yeah, right.
I'm going to tag him in this piece
Yeah,
and
right.
be like, hey, Horace, bro,
Yeah, we're talking about you.
we're talking about you, and here I am, and you haven't messaged me back on LinkedIn. Hopefully, by the time this podcast comes out in the new year, then it will, whatever. He'll have messaged me by then.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's busy. Yeah,
Yeah.
No hard feelings, Horace. I get you.
Yeah,
Like we got a lot of
busy.
stuff. I'm just curious. I'm interested in talking. But on that part, it's specifically instead of just going like influencers on basic demographics, like whatever, what he has an opportunity to do is connect to not necessarily well-known influencers, but like community leaders, right?
Yeah.
You're talking
People
about
who-
influencers that people respect, that already have that, what we keep on talking about here, that kind of authenticity that people are like, I love this guy.
Yeah, and it's like actual I think it's like connectors. It's not a huge top down, but someone that is in your community, in your network that you actually listen to and trust, can actually better sell the brand than someone all the way up here that has no connection to who they're selling to.
But has 50 million followers.
But has 50 million followers, but no one's going to be, if he's selling Ferraris, no one's going to be like, oh yeah, I want one of those. It's like, yeah, of course I do, but I can't afford it. He has 50 million followers, so it's about bringing it down to that community level and actually connecting people.
And so then connecting that to influencer, right? That's going to be the big thing, right? Is influencer marketing going to make that shift? Are they going to make that shift and be, student athletes? How many student athletes are there in the country? I'm sure you have some sort of a number in your head. Well, how many are there?
Oh, goodness. You're putting me on the spot. I have no idea. A lot.
Hey, well, at least definitely over 100,000, right? Well, way over 100,000.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
If we're counting college and high school.
Oh, well, I wasn't even doing that. I was counting just division, not just Division 1. I was talking Division 2, 3.
Yeah.
You
That's
have
a
all
lot.
these different, anyways, it doesn't matter. All these people, but the opportunity to find the right influencer or student athlete for the right brand. How special would that be? Where it is authentic, everybody gets paid, done.
Yeah.
Right? Bada bing, bada boom. The storytelling goes through. We have some transmedia action going. It's perfect, right? That's what I'm hoping happens. What might happen, and far more likely, just because that's the history, is that people will just start to blanket as many influencers as they can, and in the meantime, dilute their brand and also dilute the student athlete's brand, who then will literally be trading clout for money, which it will be unfortunate because if they, if you start to lose followers, you're like, oh, this guy does his pitch. I get that he's making money, but I don't want to follow him anymore because it just seems like every day I open up my phone, there's a new pitch for something else, right?
Yeah.
So student athletes have to be intelligent about it, right? And I think that's something that you can definitely talk to the, to the schools about too, that are a little, like, oh God, we don't want them just selling anything. It's like, yeah, you don't. There should be a class on it being like, listen, if you don't like it personally, you got to do the Fraser Crane thing. I don't know if you're a fan of Fraser, but at one of the episodes, he was doing just paid sponsorships, right? And his one rule was that he had to like the product before he endorsed it, right? Which is a hilarious episode. But yeah, going to that extent and being like, okay, you want me to endorse your peanut company? I'm allergic to peanuts.
Yeah, right. Can't do it.
So I can't do it. Right, exactly. I can't do it, right? Or I don't really like peanuts. I'm more of a pistachio guy. And it's like, all right, well, then maybe we could get you in contact with pistachios.
That's a big brand, though.
Isn't a pistachio just a type of nut?
I think so, but the pistachio is a huge brand. It's not.
Well, why wouldn't they want to go down? Come on, they got
I'm just saying that's. I mean,
Tony Gonzalez. They got Tony Gonzalez doing it. Like they're trying to do the whole influencer thing, but it might be more authentic through social media. But yeah, so what do you see? Let's get back to we've been talking for 20 minutes here, and our listeners are going like, dude, we didn't click on this to listen to you. We click on this to listen to Larry Long
Jr.
Now it's going to be, and you talked about this earlier, the education piece around alignment with the brands that you endorse, as well as just making sure that a big thing that we've seen is fair market value, because brands know that this is a whole new endeavor. And what what we expect the guidelines to be is that the institutions can't help the student athletes broker deals. So they're kind of on their own, leveraging third parties. And you know that whenever there's deals, there's unscrupulous folks that are out there looking to take advantage, whether it's a brand, whether it's a third party agent, whoever it might be. So it's like, hey, college student, I'll give you $500 if you can hook me up with last year's models of your shoes. Oh, sure. Here you go. Give me my $500. Wow, I'm on the black market selling them for $10,000. I just made a killing off of it, and the student athlete didn't even know what was going on. So the education, the business savviness, and just understanding how to negotiate what a good deal looks like, it's going to be interesting. And that's really where we step in and we say, hey, we got you. I mean, our mission is to empower and to engage athletes. And to empower means that you give them the power, you give them the ability to make the best decisions that'll benefit them, benefit their brand, and hopefully benefit their family and their future. But it's going to be interesting. I've got my popcorn to see how it all shakes out.
Well, it's crucial to do the education. I'm wondering if you're educating straight into college, or if you're going to start, it's a company as a whole going to start to pick at high quality high schools and start the feed. Just be like, hey, you know what? When you're here, you're going to be a top recruit. You're getting a full ride to Ohio State. Let's think about this for a second. There's a like you could do the influencer app, and this is what's going to happen. You're going to have people come talk to you. When you get to college, we'll talk about it more in depth, but just to get the brain, working around it, right? Never take the first offer. I don't know if that's one of the things that you guys pitch, because I'm sure there are unscrupulous people out there that are actually trying to help people out. But you're right, because there are people out there that will, especially brands. And when you said the new market thing, I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna try to make their dollar run as far as they can, right? As far as they can for as cheap as they can,
Now, one interesting conversation we've been having is just with the whole pandemic and not knowing when we're going to be back physically, has been on the delivery and the execution and implementation of our platform. And being that it's web-based, mobile-based, we have that going for us. But folks still like the physical, the face-to-face, the ability to dap someone up and actually see you, which is a challenge because we don't know. You hear about the vaccine, but we don't know when we're going to be back together safely. So being able to leverage the Zoom, the go-to meetings, the virtual. But what we're seeing is a lot of people they're trying to tap out because they're zoomed out. They're all zoomed out. It's like, I think the term is called Zoom fatigue, where it's oh my goodness, another Zoom. I got to turn on the camera and see my cheesy face and see my smile for a mile. No, say it ain't so. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, we're 10 months, 11 months, a year into this thing. It's going to be interesting to see how everyone starts to handle it as we're in it for the long haul. And if we do get back, it's going to be interesting because I think people are just yearning for being able to go and see people in actuality and not just through a screen.
Yeah. Well, and that's going to make some great content. And we're predicting the Roaring 20s come back. And then Jack also predicted the Great Depression. Number 2,
you're right.
Because everything is kind of falling in line. History is repeating itself in the 20s.
It's gonna
what was it? The Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu happened right before the Roaring 20s, and the reason why the Roaring 20s happened was because everybody was quarantined, and then they all came back and they're like, let's fucking go out and have some drinks, and they're like, well, alcohol's illegal now, and it's like, well, organized crime it. We'll get some alcohol there. They needed it, so
and then what ended up happening
was everyone was buying things on credit, and then no one was paying it back, and then the stock market exploded.
Believe the term is
crashed, but I think it blew up. It didn't really. I
always thought like a car ran into it, like the stock market crashed. The verbiage there was very confusing for a fourth grader.
Jack, please don't speak it into existence. Say it ain't so.
No. I don't know. I hope we're smarter than
just going right. So the Roaring 20s are going to come back, and it will continue to be the Roaring 20s, Roaring 30s, Roaring 40s, and it shall be continued on. Until
the end of time.
But you said something about the Zoom fatigue, which is kind of interesting because next week's guest is JD Gershine, and he is a LinkedIn guy, right? He was like one of the first guys on LinkedIn. He's very authentic, Not one of those guys who are selling, oh yeah, I'll get you a million
Stuff.
contacts or anything like that. Like this guy actually understands the authenticity and the relationship building of LinkedIn. But he said, Zoom fatigue, he's like, buck up.
Yeah.
He's like, this is our life.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're getting fatigued by this, he's like, figure out a way to get through it because it's not going anywhere. And the chances are, I mean, I know for a fact that for us, 95% of our podcasts are going to be done through Zoom. It's so easy. I get video from you. I don't have to have a camera on you. You have a camera on you.
Yep.
I don't have to worry about the audio from you. I got one mic, and obviously we have two cameras pointed at us. But it's so convenient to do it, right? So people are going to continue to use Zoom. People are going to start working from home, get used to it. But hopefully we see a whole bunch of new cool coffee shops and bars and restaurants, and hopefully the old ones that are still around will be able to roar back because people are going to want to see people face to face. And I know where are you located?
I'm in Durham, North Carolina, North Kakalaki.
Yeah, that's why I thought you were in North Carolina, right? Yeah, so I mean, we couldn't go out and grab a beer, but we'll find ourselves in North Carolina again at some
one
point.
of these days. I'm sure we'll fly over there.
Right, but then that's the goal. That's the goal. So yeah, so this has been a great conversation, Larry. I really appreciate you jumping on with us. We usually end off with some, words of wisdom. So anything that you think that we can take from, or our audience can take from the conversation as a whole.
Yeah, Frank and Jack, I appreciate y'all having me as your guest. And I would really say the key word when I think about our conversation, authenticity. And it's thrown out there. I mean, it's probably one of the most overused words out there. Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be authentic. What's that supposed to mean, Larry? What you talking about, Willis? Right. Be yourself. It's too tough to be anyone else. Just be yourself. And it's funny that you talked about it earlier in our conversation, how everyone puts on that pretty picture. Facebook, everything's hunky-dory. Video, everything is awesome. No, you want to show that, but you also want to show the real deal. You talking about Taco Tuesday. Well, right after that, his kid was probably jumping off the chandeliers and breaking stuff all over the house. Show that as well.
Yeah, right.
People can get to know the real deal Holyfield and understand, and that's really when you make the connection, is when you have that true authenticity, because people are smart. I know you know this. They can smell BS from a mile away. Yeah. You can try to paint that picture and act like everything is awesome. It's rainbows and sunshines, but people are going to be like, nah, that's BS. Ain't nobody got time for that. So authenticity would be my word of the day.
There you go. Right. Yeah. And going back to, you said that's the most overused word. We'd argue that it's storytelling because people keep saying they do storytelling.
Everybody says they do storytelling.
Oh,
but like what you said there about like it's too hard to be anyone else. You know, you have to be yourself. I mean, like that goes to the next thing about producing content, producing your brand, or going out with your brand. Is it got to be consistent? So like if you're going to be fake, it's really hard to be consistent because it's really hard to be someone else than you. It's really hard to not be authentic, especially when you have to be consistent with it.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that was a great takeaway. And yeah, this was a great conversation. I appreciate
and the hour just flew by.
Yeah, right. Shout out to Chris Johnson, who's just been plugging us into some amazing people to talk to. If the podcast was making money, then we would just hire him on as head recruiter of podcast. Right. He'd just be a producer on the show. But you know what? Maybe we can talk to him about it. You want to become a producer on the podcast? Because what's funny is that even through quarantine, right, we've met so many interesting and amazing people, but then you always run into these ruts where all of a sudden it's like I'm talking to the same people over and over again. I got no podcast guests. Like, oh my God. And he jokes that we ran out of podcast guests and that's why we had him on. I don't know why it took me so long to think about having him on the podcast, to be honest, because he's pretty remarkable in the stuff that he's doing. So yeah, shout out to him, and hopefully soon, man, we'll be able to, grab a beer and toast up. And if not, you know what we should do? Ooh, here's an idea. All the podcast guests, have them all in the same room together in a Zoom. A Zoom room. Yeah, right. Interesting.
Cheers to that. And cheers to CJ. Chris Johnson is the man. I appreciate him connecting me to the brothers, Conrath. Oh, goodness. I've had a blast.
What a great way to start off season 1. Amazing conversation.
Very engaging. And you know what? It just goes to show you got to be authentic and you got to be consistent with your brand.
Right, exactly. And this is really where In Conversation is going. We'll be talking to more marketing, branding experts, and people who are pushing the needle. And Larry's definitely one of those guys. He's involved with a company that's definitely doing that. And gosh, you got to love his enthusiasm.
Yeah. 0 to 60.
Yeah, right. So if you want more content like this, you could find it to the left or the right of us, whichever one. You'll see it. Then you'll be able to see other great content, other great conversations that we've had, and Stipulations, which is a cocktail show that you, the audience, gives us the name, and Jack tries to figure out how to make it.
It's a lot of fun, and we love the support, guys.